Hello friends! In this series, using the right shape, the right color, and just a little bit of detail, I'm not going to show you how to build a thing, I'm going to show you how you can build anything. My name is Jacoby, and this is the joy of building. Alrighty, welcome back everybody. So glad you decided to join us once more. Today we're going to take a look at this French Provincial style. It is a very elegant build style, and there's a lot of key shapes that are going to help us achieve this look. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we have an elevated ground floor. We're going to have buildings with lots of symmetry. We're going to favor this high-hipped roof, and we'll have a couple of dormer-based windows to tie this look together for us. Once we got a couple of shape ideas, we can jump into our build world here and see what we can make. And if you're coming back to Joy Building for the second or third time, you know that we're going to start with a box. And today's box is going to be 15 by 11. Then from here we're going to come up 10 blocks, and these 10 blocks are going to account for both our first and second stories, as well as the gap that we want to have for our first floor. So once you got your box filled out, go ahead and fill it in, and this is going to be our starting block for today's build. Alright, let's elevate that first floor. All I'm going to do is take some of this orange wool here and go up 2 blocks, and I'm going to wrap it all the way around our building. So we've got our box here, but it's not very interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out little individual walls of the box to create a little more interest as we go around. We're going to start right here. We're going to start with 1 block in the middle, and it's going to be 5 wide. And then we're going to bring this all the way up to the top and just fill in the sides. Once we get to the top, we'll build a little pyramid on the top that will represent the first dormer that we're going to put on this house. Around the 2 smaller sides of the house here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a space so we can put some nice big bay windows. So this bottom portion that we built around, I'm going to pull it out, and then I'm going to build my bay window across the top of it here. And once I'm done with this side, I'm going to do the same thing over here on the other side as well. Alright, around the back here I'm going to pull these walls out as well, except this time instead of doing 1, I'm going to do 2. And we're not going to go all the way up to the top, we're going to go up to where we think the second floor might start, because I'm going to make the top of these balconies. And remember, we want to maintain symmetry, so anything we do on one side, we've got to do it equally on the other. Okay, now let's hop up top and do this roof. We want a hipped roof that's going to be nice and tall. Hipped roofs are really easy. You just start with a square, and then you make a smaller square and a smaller square, and you bring it right on up. For these bay windows, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to just outline the edge of the roof here, and then I'm going to put 1 roof cap on top. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. And then around the back here, we're going to bring these up, we're going to cut into the roof here and bring up some dormers and pull the roof line out to create those dormer windows that we wanted to build. Across the top here, we'll add a couple real simple 3x1 chimneys. Symmetry, remember our symmetry, so do it on both sides, and we'll have a nice space for our chimneys. Alright, so for our colors here, we see a lot of really regal looking earth tones, lots of nice calming tones, so we're going to stick with lots of browns, lots of tans. And then for the roof, we want to mimic that slate look, so we will stick with a nice dark gray for our roof line. Alright, let's jump back in and color our build. For the orange, yellow, and blue wool, we will use these brown mushroom blocks. For the red wool here, we will use the smooth sandstone. And for the green wool up top for our roofs, we will use this gray terracotta. And now it's time for, I think, one of the most satisfying parts of these videos, getting to watch the time lapse of filling these colors in. And I'm just going to go around and follow that pattern that we laid out just a few moments ago, and we will see this build coming together. As I'm filling this in, I'm just thinking about what kind of windows do I want to put on this, and where do I want some of those details that are going to come later, where do I want them to go, and how is that going to look as we're coloring this build in. So I'll speed up this footage and I will see you on the other side. Alright, now it's time for our second layer of colors, and remember, the second layer of color is all about adding just a little splash of texture to our color palette. So we will use these packed mud blocks for our brown colors, we'll use the sandstone for our tan colors here, and then we'll use just plain old mud blocks. I think they go nicely with that gray color that we had from earlier. So let's jump in and add a little texture. I'm going to start with this packed mud blocks, and I think they go really nicely with the brown mushroom here. I'm kind of trying to go for a stucco look, so I'm just doing little patches where the stucco might have been worn away, nothing too complicated. Just wherever you think the weather might have struck this building and worn away the stucco a little bit. A lot of this is actually going to go away when we put in our windows, but that's okay. As we're building this out here, we're just building out what feels natural, and it will all come together for us. Now we're going to try an interesting technique with this sandstone. You remember how in the old cartoons you used to see like the side of a brick building, and they didn't always have all of the bricks drawn or colored in. It was just a couple of bricks to just kind of give you the feel of a brick wall. We're going to try to mimic that with our sandstone blocks. So you'll see here as I'm building this out, I'm building just lines of what I consider to be just really large bricks kind of laid out on top of each other. I'm not doing it through the entire wall here, just in little patches to give us the feel of bricks. And I think once we're done here and we pull out, especially from a distance, it really does pull across as just a nice little brick facade. Now let's add those mud blocks to the roof here, and then once again we're going to go back to just putting little patches of texture wherever we think the slate on the roof might have gotten a little worn away. It's not terribly important where you put this, just as long as you don't overdo it. Just a little bit goes a long way, and then as we pull out here you can see that that looks pretty nice. Alright, the last thing I'm going to do here before we move on to our details is I'm going to round out the corner of the building here, and I'm going to use just these sandstone walls to make it happen. You can see me kind of going through a couple different trial and errors, but I'm going to put these walls on all four corners just to give it kind of a nice rounded edge. Alright, now that we move on to the details here, what we're going to do is we're going to try to add a couple elevated entranceways with some nice long stairs coming down. We might try to do some overhangs with some metal railing, get that wrought iron railing look. And then of course we'll always go through and add a little bit of greenery to tie it all together for us. So one thing I want to talk about here is when we make our shape at the beginning, we are not tied to that shape all the way through. I want to add a really luxurious front porch here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through our pattern of shape, color, and detail, but in miniature. I'm going to use wool to block out how I think this little front overhang should look. I'm going to add some colors to it, and then I'm going to go back and detail it out all in one mini step. And then what you'll see here is as this is coming together, slowly but surely, it starts to look like it was intended to be a part of the build from the very beginning. All right, now let's add some windows. We're running a little tight on space here, and remember, anything we do on one side, we need to repeat on the other so that we can maintain that symmetry that's important to this look. What I'm gonna do for my windows here is I'm gonna use mostly walls here, and I'm gonna rely on trapdoors in the windows themselves to do a lot of heavy lifting for the details of the window portion. And any window we put on one side, we'll have to put on the other. So I'm gonna do the same window up top here, and then I'm going to repeat them both on the other side. And individually they don't look like much, but together they all look like they really belong. For our bay windows here, this is actually going to be really easy. We're just going to use these mud brick walls here, and we're going to put them on each of the 6 edges, and then we're going to backfill it with the full glass blocks, and that fills out that really nicely. Up top here, I actually want this roof to not be as tall, so we're going to cut it down and just go up by half steps instead of the full blocks that we had earlier. Now around the back, we got some space to do some statement windows. Now you'll recognize this window. This is one of my favorite windows to build. It's just walls and stairs and planks, and then you backfill it with some glass, and we can put some of those metal bars across the bottom here to get a nice wrought iron railing look. Across the top here, what we can do is we'll connect these 2 kind of bay boxes here to create a continuous balcony, and then all we're doing is using a lot of those similar blocks to put together some of the details of this build. And the nice thing about this method of building is that your details don't have to be particularly complicated, because we have spent all of that time building layers and layers in our texture, in our shape, and now with the details, and all of that together puts together something that looks really nice. Across the top here for the roof line, what we'll do is we'll use some stairs to make some interesting patterns here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip some of these stairs upside down just to change up the shape. As you're doing this, don't be afraid to play with just little alterations in how blocks might be pointing their direction to get some interesting details and flavors out of that build. Up on the roof here, we're going to do something interesting. We're going to add a lot of interest to this roof line just by using these deep slate cobblestone half slabs. We're going to go around in a pattern like this. We're just going to go every other block, kind of creating this checkerboard pattern on the roof. And you'll see once we pull away from a distance just how much adding these slabs to the roof carried a lot of weight for adding a lot of character to the top of our roof here. For the crown of our roof, we're going to get a little ornamental. I'm going to lay down some of these anvils here and then just build kind of a roof ornament. I started with 3, decided that was a little too much, knocked down the middle one to get that nice ornamental roof look. And as we pull out here, you can see that this roof looks pretty fancy now, and we didn't do much. All we did was add some slabs and decorated the top a little bit. All right, let's do these chimneys real quick. You know, I love putting a fire in my chimney. It adds just a little bit of motion to our build. You can see these are not very complicated, but together they add a nice little bit of detail. Now we're just putting on some finishing touches around the side here. I decided that this edge on our little platform here was a little bit too much, so I'm just kind of playing with some stairs and with some trapdoors to get it kind of rounded off and not be quite as severe of a change from the ground to the first floor. All right, let's finish this up by adding some greenery. Now, these builds seem to be pretty fancy, so we're going to shy away from putting our typical vines on the build, but you can see that even by adding just a little bit of shrubbery around the base here, we've really lifted this build off of the ground, and our greenery doesn't have to be attached to the build to add character to the build. So we can build a couple of just tiny little trees that look separated. These look nice and manicured like they were on some fancy lawn, but they still frame out our build and add that little pop of color that we're looking for, and those look lovely. All right, last but not least, let's jump inside here and clean out all of this wool so that we can get ready to build our interior. If you guys have a good YouTuber who does good interiors, I would love to get some suggestions from them, or perhaps from you guys, about how to do good interiors. I like the exteriors, as you can tell, so drop a couple of those in the comments to let me know. And there you go, guys. There is our build, and I think it looks great. This was just one big box that we started with, but by adding those little shapes and those little details, we created something that I think looks really nice. So don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you next time.